dungeons of my black despair.
And we're back. If you missed the first half of this rant review, it is over. Roseblood by A.G. Howard. If you love her, I'm sorry. I thought this was the worst book I have ever read. And that's saying something, because I've read some pretty bad books. And you would know that if you have kept up with my reviews. The whole deal with Roseblood. Based off of Phantom of the Opera. Love the idea. Hate the execution. Main character's name is Rune. She's one narrator. Other narrator is Thorn. And he is like the contemporary Phantom. He is like the Phantom's protege. Christine Daae, parts of her soul have been transplanted into Rune, and they're like, we need to steal her voice to help bring someone who we're assuming is Christine back to life. You'd think that's great, but it's really not. Rune turns out to be a psychic vampire, as is the Phantom of the Opera, as is Thorn, and the ridiculousness continues. And today is largely just going to be me reading these ridiculous excerpts from the novel. Stay tuned. I honestly, I risked library fines in order to keep this book so I could read all these really horrendous segments, okay? I dog-eared pages so much here, okay? I never do this, but every time I ran across something, I was like, I gotta keep that. So here we go. Let's start with the very beginning. So first, I shiver and rub the scar on my left knee that peeks through the rip of my jeans, a reminder imprinted on my skin. A reminder of the splintering wood I kicked my way through. A reminder that, accident or not, I didn't imagine it. On the whole, that would be okay, except rub the scar on my left knee that peeks through the rip in my jeans. Do we need all of that? Especially because the thing about the scar is it's supposed to give her premonitions or something. Well, not premonitions, but like, you know how old bones can tell you when it's gonna rain? It's something like that. But it really plays no part in the entire book. We just get lots of stupid mentions of it. And I'm like, couldn't she just say, I rubbed the scar on my knee? Because I have scars. I don't need to have them showing to touch them. I know where it is, so I could rub it. Like, it's just too wordy. And Howard does that all the freaking time. Oh my gosh. Like, this book probably could have been this big. Half the book if she had just pared it down. But you know what? She earned the right. Next one. This is the singing in the car part. The problem is that as I've grown, it's become more demanding. An entity that controls me. Once a song speaks to my subconscious, the notes become a toxin I have to release through my diaphragm, my vocal cords, my tongue. The only way I can breathe again is through a binge and purge of music. The worst part is what follows. How finishing a performance makes me feel. Stripped naked, cold, and exposed. Physically sick. Only hours later, after the symptoms of withdrawal have run their course, can I become myself once more. At least until the next melody possesses me, like the one snaking through me now. My legs start to jitter, and I clamp my hands on my knees. I cough to suppress the tune that's climbing my throat like bile. Rune, are you all right? You're awfully flushed, is it? Oh, she takes one look at my face and moans. My flushed cheeks and dilated pupils are her only cue. She's never seen what I see in the mirror, what Dad used to see when music burned inside me. My iris is brightening to a lighter, almost ethereal blue, like sunlight streaming through green glass. Dad called it an energy surge, but because Mom couldn't see it, she laughed it off. Just get it over with, she insists. Another cough, hard enough to strain my vocal cords. I can't sing in here. The nagging notes tangle in my throat. What if I hit a high C and break the windows? Your clothes won't survive that much rain. Because remember, they just went through a Parisian shopping spree. And she's gonna break the windows and it's raining outside. Oh my gosh, I just can't, okay? Can we please, in terms of singing, I don't mind that she has a talent. Hello, Katniss Everdeen, amazing with a bow and arrow. I don't mind if the protagonist is really good at something. But from the beginning, we learn, we know, we understand. She had no part in it. And it's not like, oh, I'm kind of ashamed of the fact that I've never needed voice lessons. It's, I don't want to break windows because people are going to clap for me. I wish she'd been legitimately humble, almost embarrassed, every time she mentions breaking out in song in public. It's not like she took a bow or anything, but it wasn't like, oh, I wish this wouldn't happen because I don't want to embarrass myself in public this way. For me, I can't even sing. Well, I kind of sometimes I'll sing when I say things, but I don't even like to sing in church and have someone turn around and look at me, or do something exceptional and have somebody, or even I love clothes, but sometimes I don't want people to remark on what I'm wearing. I wear it because I feel good, not because I'm trying to attract attention. And I kind of wish she had been the same way, in which she knows something about her is going to attract attention. And I wish her reservation would come from not wanting to attract the attention. Instead, it's, oh, I can sing a high C that I never had to work for, and I break glass. Yeah, so let's continue. This is fantastic. This is a bit of that overwriting that I'm talking about, where we don't need it, okay? I guess it's supposed to reflect and give us more insight into Rune, where it's just unnecessary. She's at school and she notices, I think it's the weekend or it's after classes or something, and whoever she's coming in contact with is not wearing her uniform. So she says, so the students aren't required to be in uniform on the weekends. Good to know. Wouldn't that be in the brochure? Yeah, there we go. We're moving on. When they went on the shopping spree in Paris, she had her uniforms made for her. And can I tell you, not only is she a miraculous singer, but she is a fashionista who knows how to sew. She is with it. She can do Project Runway. This bag of uniforms disappears. And we learn that it was her Aunt Charlotte, because her aunt, I guess, is trying to scare her away from this school. And in the end, it was completely pointless, because then, I guess, I don't know, Thorne makes it sound like whoever stole the clothes was kind of on their team. And what happens is she, shreds the clothes. I don't know if Rune was supposed to find them. Thorne finds them, and then to set a trap for her, he sprinkles the clothes across the garden so that it can go to this old chapel, which I gotta get into that. We learn the clothes are gone. She has to wear hand-me-downs, kind of extras hanging around the school. Then she finds her clothes, which are not ruined enough that she can't fix them, because she is Project Runway material. It was so dumb. I didn't even know what they were talking about with this pink bag. They made this, or Howard made this huge deal about this missing pink bag. I'm like, what pink bag? It unnecessarily. Unnecessary. Oh my gosh. This is where we are. I nod, not mentioning how violating it feels having your clothes stolen, wondering why anyone would take something so personal in the first place. Unless it was for revenge because I interrupted the tryouts. Because she matters that much, okay? And then my unruly hair cascades around my shoulders, several strands sticking to my suddenly overwarm cheeks. Can I tell you how much I hate when writers use the word suddenly? I use the brush Mom hands me to rake the waves from my face until they pop with static. Snuggling a knitted headband into place, I swing my feet over the bed's edge and yawn. As I'm pouring my sleepy limbs into the gray jacket, long skirt, and white ruffled shirt that make up the writing habit wannabe, the scent of bacon and something cinnamon blends with rich notes of coffee and wafts under my door. As somebody who previously had ridiculously curly hair, you do not drag a brush through that. Not even when it's wet. If you abide by the curly girl method, they tell you don't brush your hair. Actually, even if you don't, you do not brush curly hair. Like, it is much better left natural, okay? Like, not something about brushing it does things to the curls. So anyways, obviously Howard doesn't know what she's talking about, but anybody who reads this book is gonna be like, you don't brush curly hair! And Rune should know, you don't brush curly hair! Especially if it's dry. Like, come on, people. That way it's gonna be like, Wah. Anyways, so yes, then pouring her sleepy limbs into a jacket. How do you do that? Please explain to me. Like, you can pour yourself into a dress, but isn't that like a term of something sexy? So is her jacket sexy? Are her limbs really sleepy? Next. Oh my gosh, this I cannot stand. She does this a lot towards the beginning, and I feel like, again, it's one of those things where Howard was forcing characterization onto us rather than letting us get to know Rune. We all know about chewing on our hair. Some people, it's a nervous habit. Like, we do not need to be told about nerves, but, you know, I also thought it was really obvious. So instead of it kind of just happening and Rune being like, oh, I'm chewing on my hair, it's kind of like, this is no longer a subconscious habit. This is a conscious habit. I'm taking my hair and I'm chewing it. So here, yet one more hair chewing instance. Nibbling the ends of my hair to taste the sweet orange and vanilla of my shampoo. Can you really taste your shampoo? Please, enlighten me. My hair, I probably could eat it if I tried, but I won't. Can you taste the notes of the scents? Maybe I'm just being really cynical here. Maybe I'm just trying to find things, but like, I thought my poor opinion of this book came from being in a really crappy mood while I was reading it. But honestly, going back through it just to remind myself and to see my notes, I was still horrified. Like, I was bored out of my skull. Like, I was like, this is the worst book I've ever read. Yes, so here's some of this description about the school that I was telling you about. She's talking about the cafeteria, which she is an atrium or something. And she's expecting it to be big and bright and whatnot. And she's like, actually, no, it's not. Because there's not a plant in sight. And it's as dreary as our dorm rooms. Round mirrors were substituted for the windows when the layout was redesigned. The reflective surfaces, splotchy and black in places where the silver backing was rubbed off to appear fashionably distressed, resemble the portholes on a ghostly sunken ship. Driven by that unshakable feeling of something on the other side of the reflections, I pick up my pace. The glossy floor, a deep red and black striped design, glides soundlessly under my Mary Jane loafers. Side note, can it glide underneath her loafers, or is she gliding on top of it? Square red and black tiles continue the color scheme up to the ceiling. Ew. The long room is divided lengthwise. Shiny red chairs and matching candlelit tables. Seriously, I'm thinking blood here. Like, this is the most garish color scheme I can imagine. Most of them filled with students draped in shadows hug the far walls. This half, the entry side, is open and provides a path to the buffet located around the corner at the far end of the room. Could we please be told anything more specific? Like, everything in this book is so specific. A Gothic-style chandelier, I mean, guys, I'm about to start laughing, dangles from the low red ceiling above us, like 12-inch long black and gold taper candles turned upside down. Multiple glowing tips, the size and shape of tiny flames, light the walkway with a subtle yellow haze. Blah, 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 blah. I gaze sidelong at the diners and find everyone preoccupied by eating, deep in their own conversations or writing notes in spirals or journals, because we all call spiral notebooks spirals. Apparently about the opera taking place on the 2 big screen TVs suspended at the ends of the room to offer a clear view from all directions. Now I get why the cafeteria is so dimly lit. The songs streaming from the speakers are synchronized with the pictures in movie theater style. The student handbook stressed that we would be immersed in the world of opera, especially pertaining to the end of the year program. Not only were we to learn the music, we were to master the theatrics behind each performance, embrace both the visual and oral aspects. And what better way than to play each act over and over on TVs as opposed to popular or classic movies, reality shows, or other teenage programming. I'm just saying. And then, Mom and I step around the corner into the well-lit alcove where the slick floor surrenders to black and gold checked carpet surrounding a buffet counter. First off, who puts carpeting around food? It's like carpeting in a bathroom. It's just a bad idea. I mean, like, the only way I can forgive this is if this place is actually based off of something real. Let's talk about this guy right here, Jax. Okay. There, a guy with twinkling blue eyes. Oh my gosh. Twinkling blue eyes and pale blonde hair, almost glimmering white in the fluorescent lighting, dishes some watermelon from a stainless steel bowl half buried in ice. Towering over this other student at 6'2" or so. Because, like, that's exactly what I do when I see someone. I'm like, I'm gonna guess their height. He draws back the bowl so she can't quite reach it. Blah-de, blah-de, blah. She shakes her long, dark ponytail, gives him a playful scowl, and says something in Spanish. Blah-de, blah-de, blah. Apparently, he knows the language and thinks he scored some points. Blah-de, blah-de, blah. He catches me looking and flashes a flirty grin. I put up the necessary barricades and avert my eyes to a chalkboard on an easel. Oh my gosh, again with the words that blocks part of the wall beside the cash register. Do we need all that? Or can she just say she averts her eyes? Let's keep going to more of Jax. Although actually no, I must talk about this chalkboard, okay? Because apparently while they have 4 live-in chefs, the students are responsible for certain things because it helps them become well-rounded citizens. And so what Rune does, because this is totally realistic, she writes in her own job. She's like, I'm too good for bathrooms. I'm too good for kitchen duty. I am going to finagle my way into the garden. I'm going to be the gardener because this school apparently doesn't care about its garden, so I'm gonna do it, hoping I will run into the mysterious guy that I saw my way in. And wouldn't you know it, like, it rains the first 2 weeks she's there, so she doesn't even have to do her job. And the only repercussion is she doesn't get to go to Paris on the weekends. Really? No wonder her arch enemy Kat, the girl she burst in on during her tryout, doesn't like her. Honestly, she does seem to get whatever she wants. Her aunt gets her into a school that has no vacancies. She's able to write in her own job when all the other students have to choose from what's already available. Like, there's so many things about Rune that just don't make sense. Oh my gosh. Oh yes. Then we meet the headmistress. She is in her upper 40s and is thin and leggy as a model, With flawless skin 1 shade lighter than the rich brown bread she retrieves from the glass case and wraps in a paper liner, her perfect arched eyebrows framing fawn soft brown eyes. Her hair, spirals of ebony, glossed with streaks of bluish gray. Yeah, okay. Fringes her shoulders as she reaches out to take my meal ticket over the counter. From what I can tell of her clothes under the apron, they're every bit as stylish and chic as the lady wearing them. We get a lot of this. We get a lot of this. Talk about over description, you know? Like, once in a while is okay. Give me an idea of what students and teachers look like, I'm fine. But I don't need to know head to toe. I just don't. Oh yes, but this leads into my next point. So I've already told you that Rune can be on Project Runway. This school, I just don't understand the finances of this school. They're trying to conserve funds for this end of school production they do every single year. So the headmistress is trying to figure out ways to kind of recycle costumes or make them multi-purpose. So Rune, whom she has never met before this moment, she's like, because Sunny steps in and is like, oh, here's our little segue so that, Rune, you can help the headmistress backstage instead of having to be on stage, because the humble braggart that she is, she's like, I don't want to display my talent. So Rune looks over at the movie screens and at the nuns on the screens, because they're having to dress the nuns and the barmaids, because you can really turn the nun habit into a barmaid costume. I furrow my brow. The last look I got at the TV, the nuns were hopping around the stage, their eyes huge and wild as if possessed. It needs to be comfortable enough they can move around, lightweight so they won't get overheated under the stage lights, but it should look sturdy and heavy, like authentic nun habits, right? Blah, blah, blah. You need a fabric that has a nap. Like velour, cut it on the bias, then finish all the seams with a serger so the robes are reversible. When the light shines on the front of the nun's robes, it will be matted and dark. On the reverse side, it will be a different shade and texture, shinier and brighter. Convert the wimples the nuns wear in their necks and heads to bonnets and aprons that can cinch the waists on the wenches' uniforms, holding up the robe's hems after they've been folded at the knees for short, poofy dresses. Same pattern, same accessories, totally different look. And you'll only have to buy enough fabric for one set. I mean, I do have a friend who is amazing with a needle and thread. So it's possible someone could just shoot that off the top of their head. But it's just one more instance in which Rune is just too good. Like, she's too all-encompassing. She can just do everything. And I'm like, no mystery here. Like, there's nothing for me to connect with this girl, to root for this girl. It's just all laid out in front of her. Everything is at her feet. Even though she has this terrible curse of being able to hit a high C. I love this part. She finally meets Jax. Up close and personal. Except for the fact that she fainted and he carried her off. The name's Jax. He croons in a rich baritone. How many times have we been told he says? Like, it's just too much. Like, nothing is left to the imagination. And not only that, he croons in a rich baritone. What am I supposed to do with that? He's 17. I know we're 17-year-old guys are super smooth, but like, really? And then we meet the rest of the group. We meet the Hispanic girl, Audrey, who is Jax's love interest, yet they are so mature that they've decided they're just not ready. So they're not going to do anything about it. Yeah, I should be a proponent of it, but I'm not, because it's so cliched and stereotypical. I just can't handle it. here we go. All right, a little bit of this cliche nonsense that I cannot handle. We meet Audrey, and we learn that they call her their little blackbird. And so, grinning, Jax flips around a chair at the head of the table to sit on it backward. Well, duh. Arms wrapped around the frame. Duh. Now, it's crystal clear why he wanted to help me carry my food over. How can she not see it with the way he looks at her? And then we get this really vomit-worthy exchange between a guy named Quan and Sunny because they're dating. We get this litany of info dump about Quan and Sunny being together and about this and about that. And I'm just like, thanks, but no thanks. I don't really care. Like, there was really no opportunity for me to get to know any of these characters outside of, hey, these are my characters. Like, I'm not gonna give them to you in bits and pieces. I'm gonna give it all up front, and I'm gonna expect you to care about them because I rarely mention them again. They really aren't involved in the story, except that sometimes I need bodies. Oh gosh, this was fantastic. Eric, or the Phantom, tells Thorn some story about him and Christine. Thorn's heart ached with sadness. Well, duh. I mean, unless he's like suffering a heart attack or congestion, what else would it be aching from? You know, it's a sob story. Like, we don't need to know ached from sadness. Now we get this whole thing about the missing uniforms again. Rune is like, I'm just gonna lie about it because if I don't, things are gonna happen that we don't really want to happen. So all I can do is turn and walk away, wishing quietly that I could sever and discard the musical entity that lives inside of me and finally be normal. If she's wishing quietly, does that mean, or doesn't that mean she's wishing out loud? When I think what Howard means is she's just wishing internally? Overwriting. We don't need to know certain details to understand what's happening. It comes off wrong when you do it that way. I told you that Rune had been lured to this chapel by, you know, the pieces of her clothing. She's inside and it's completely dark, but because she's not a bookworm, she has a book light with her. She clips it onto her collar, and now she is trying to navigate her way through this dark chapel. Moving the book light to the bodice of my dress, I peel out of my soggy sweater and drape it across the roses in the tub to distance myself from what happened at the grave, at least for the moment. Next, I tug off my headband and use it to bind my wet hair into a ponytail. How? Aren't headbands hard? Like, if you bend them, they break. Maybe she means like the kind that I use when I'm washing my face to keep my hair out of my way. Oh my gosh, I hate this. Leaving only a few ringlets plastered to my temples and the nape of my neck. Things get weird. She sees weird stuff that eventually makes sense but is really weird here. There's this cat, all right? This cat that is kind of like Thorn's familiar or something, and he helps Thorn like accomplish his dastardly schemes. Diable is the cat's name. The cat's silhouette leaps up to a perch on what was once a baptismal. I join him at the oval basin. The brick edge hits me mid-thigh because all of this is completely necessary information. A pool of murky water glitters inside, some 9 feet in diameter, reminding me of a well. It seems unusually wide and deep. The scar on my knee throbs because that's necessary. And then she, relives the memory of her grandmother trying to drown her. There's nothing to fear here. It's a baptismal. People stood in it. The water can't be very deep. It's an illusion created by the darkness. The beam attached to my dress shimmers along the glassy surface. Its bright reflection moves and ripples as something stirs inside. Diable notices the ripples too. He seems intrigued. His long, pointed ears tilt forward and he balances on the basin's lip, tapping the water with his paw and emitting a long, low mewl that starts deep in his throat and ends with a sharp-toothed snarl. The water bulges as though something is surfacing. My skin goes cold and clammy. It's got to be a fish or a frog. Because that makes sense, right? I back up a step because I'm lying to myself. Whatever is causing the water to churn is too big to be either. So the deal is, the Phantom has a familiar, and it's like a red swan. So here's my question. This swan is in the baptismal. Why doesn't it die from lack of oxygen? How long has it been in this baptismal as she is making her way to the chapel and then up to the baptismal? The swan emerges, feathers and wings emerge in sync with a cavalcade of lightning. A long, graceful neck unfurls into the most beautiful swan I've ever seen, as red, bright, and vivid as the blood seeping from the roses. Thunder rolls and Diable lunges at the bird. He loses balance, plopping into the water belly first. The swan trumpets and flaps, and she dodges, and the swan disappears into the shadows. I try to reach him, but even when my thighs hit the basin's edge, my arms aren't long enough. My throat lumps, because yes, that's how it works. She is like, okay, this isn't actually gonna be like the last time, and then in her book light's beam, she watches the cat's head disappear, fingers digging into the bricks, which I don't understand this. She pulls up onto the edge and balances her hip there. She leans sideways, anchoring herself with her legs bent over the outside lip. Hello, like, wordy much? Could we cut it out a little bit? After stirring the cold water, she snags the cat by the collar. He fights her. Her book light falls into the water in a shimmery trail. Her surroundings grow dim again, broken by sporadic slashes of lightning. She tugs the cat close so he can climb out, and then, startled by thunder, he basically, like, knocks her into the pool where she starts to drown. This is when Thorn comes and saves her. I don't know how much of this is planned. I don't know how much of it is not planned, because this is like his big reveal moment. Because he's supposed to start lulling her into a false sense of security so that she feels safe, and he can essentially do to her what the Phantom had done to Christine, help her hone her voice. And they want to make her feel like a monster, so she'll be incapable of forming relationships or functioning. They want her to give up her music. I don't quite understand how they think this is going to work. There was another subplot or sub-theme in this book about a guy named Ben. So what happened is she had gone to a party where she met a guy, and before obviously knowing she was a psychic vampire, she drained him of his life force, but not enough to kill him. So he's been in a coma for X number of months. She already carries a ton of guilt around from that, and I guess the whole deal with turning her into a monster is having her do things to her friends, somehow sever ties with them, make them afraid of her, and then because of that, she's not going to want to sing anymore. If any of this makes sense to you, please explain it to me, because I'm not picking up what they're putting down. I think I've covered everything. I honestly could go on and on and on. So overall though, this book, don't bother. It had great potential, as all books do, but the writing was terrible. The plot lines were really underwhelming. The characters were flat. They were stereotypical. I failed to connect with Rune. I thought Thorn was a bit stronger, only because we got those little background tidbits. I don't know how she got away with this book at all. I think I really would rather read Twilight. I hope this made you feel better, because it actually kind of did make me feel better, even though that margarita, it's gonna go straight down the drain. It was a waste of tequila, and now I'm like devastated by that. I hope to see you next time. As always, show some love, like, subscribe, comment, share, do what you feel like doing. Catch you on the flip side. Bye.